Once a father said to me, I find it hard to find deep rest in the home with my two young children. Boy, does this resonate. I think that a lot of us dads can relate to the rest problem, kind of things being kind of frenetic, unrested. What are we going to do about that? Well, I have three suggestions. First of all, we might not have thought of this, but I think we need to go to the universal level, kind of the deeper principle. Put first things first. Make sure that we're putting the time necessary into the most important things. Attending to our first obligations first. Getting a certain hierarchy in life, right? Make sure that we're attending to our relationship with our wife, our children, our friends, the broader community, right? We have obligations, all these, and they're in a certain hierarchy. Make sure that we're putting first things first, because the principle is always when we put first things first, then everything will better fall into its place. So when we think in terms of hierarchy, prioritizing, then we have the basis for fitting things in. Rest is extremely important, but it's not in itself the most important thing. But it's going to be able to be fit in properly when we're putting things in the right hierarchy. I think a particular challenge that we have is particularly when we're first married, but also, throughout marriage, things maybe that we did before we were married, things that we still really want to do that we're trying to squeeze in. We've all done this, right? We're squeezing in too much. We're sure I can still do this great thing that I enjoy doing, or this hobby, or even getting in touch with these friends over here, which, again, some of those things maybe are very appropriate to be done, but are we not being realistic about the demands of being married and having a family? So to think realistically in terms of that prioritizing. Professionally, I look back on certain things where I was like, oh yeah, it's important for me professionally that I accept this lecture, or accept this gig, or write this paper. And I look back, it probably would have been better for me just to kind of, to have confidence, it's going to be all right. Opportunities will come. Now is not the time. We're all going to need to do that. Often, when we're overcommitting, isn't one of the things that goes out the window getting enough sleep? Well, this brings me to my second suggestion. We just need to be practical, realistic, and savvy about getting enough sleep. That's our responsibility. It's so annoying when people are falling asleep when they're supposed to be doing something important. Hey, I'm in the classroom, the student's falling asleep. Not always, but sometimes I'll go out to that student after class and say, hey, you're falling asleep in class. What's going on? The student will often say, well, yeah, gosh, sorry about that. I'm just so busy. I'm not getting enough sleep. That's why I'm falling asleep in class. As though this is an excuse. I say, I understand that's the reason that you're falling asleep in class. That's not an excuse that you're not getting enough sleep, because getting enough sleep is your responsibility. No one else is going to make sure that you get enough sleep. You've got to make sure that you get enough sleep. So just, are we taking those steps? Again, realistically, putting that hierarchy in our day where we're making what sometimes will be a very big sacrifice to make sure that we're getting to sleep early. They say those pre-midnight hours are more restful. Let's bear that in mind. Sometimes we're just going to have to make that happen. And we need to take responsibility. And no one else. My wife isn't responsible that I get enough sleep. Though honestly, I think to some extent, I'm responsible, not only for myself, but also for her, to make sure that mom is getting enough sleep. My third suggestion is to deepen leisure in our life. Pursue leisure as a deeper kind of rest. And that actually is going to be a very important part of the broad reality of rest in our life, rest in our home. Studies show that deep, rich, meaningful activity can actually lessen our need for as much sleep. This makes sense, doesn't it? There's something special that happens in us, that there's a kind of restfulness in the simple bodily sense, when we're kind of resting in that richer sense in deep things. I love the notion of leisure. It's a really, really important one. I've done some separate concepts made clear videos to kind of say what leisure is and to make some distinctions. But being intentional about rediscovering and cultivating leisure, that can be a key part of this very important aspect of getting the appropriate amount of rest in our home. So, it might be the case at certain times in our life, we're just not going to have quite enough. That dad is going to be really tired. We're going to have to do our best, maybe even to pretend that we're not. And that's okay. As long as we're attending to the most important things, we're going to be able to get the rest in the most important sense that we need.